Hello, everyone's Forest Focus. The Nottingham Forest are beaten at home by Brighton, ending a run of 3 straight wins. Just a blip, or should we be worried with rock bottom Wolves up next? We'll discuss all that, as well as a couple of individual players in the company of, first of all, Rob Adcock. Rob, morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Not too down after yesterday, but we'll get into that. Dan Cook, Danscape, how are you?
Yeah, morning. I'm all right. Yeah, had a nice weekend aside from the football, so I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, a result does affect every weekend, but yeah, I wasn't. Like I say, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. Former race defender Kelvin Wilson, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Good. Crap weather, but yeah, I'm good.
It is crap weather. To start on an aside, it was absolutely miserable walking down the hill to school this morning. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, December is here. Right, Rob, kick us off. Just general thoughts on the game. Someone in the chat has said it was like an Ange game. It was a bit weird. It was very open. What did you make of it?
It was a strange one. I was talking about this on the drive home yesterday, and I didn't come away from that game thinking, oh, no, here we go again. I don't know why. I don't know whether it was because I'd had a couple of drinks in the new nav beforehand or because my daughter's going through a potty training and doing all right. But I came away from it, and I was just like, actually, there were moments in there where you thought to yourself, they give you so much cause for optimism. We've been to so many matches, and I remember speaking to you, Matt, after coming away from the Bournemouth match, and you thought that the tactics were going to be to knock it up front for Taiwo for the rest of the season. But I came away from that, and I wasn't down and in the dumps about it. Again, that second goal, we definitely didn't want it to happen, but I'd rather lose 2-0 trying to get an equaliser than lose 1-0 and go out to a whimper. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a happy clapper that can't see the wood from the trees, but I didn't feel really upset coming away from yesterday. It just felt like those games are going to happen. Brighton are a good team. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I came away from it not worried at all about the table. We'll discuss the Wolves game, Dan, and if that might change things. But yeah, it was a strange game. The opening 20 minutes were a bit worrying. I'll ask Kelv how that happened, but it was a bit of just an odd match, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd have been worried after the first 20 minutes because I think
we could have been 5-0 down.
We couldn't seem to get near them, and they were good at mixing it up. I think mostly I came away from that game more sort of impressed with Brighton than desperately worried about us. I think they were good at being able to go long or play round us, and we struggled for those first 20 minutes to kind of keep up with them, and then we did give them some problems. But our play round the box, our final ball was just missing, whereas theirs was really tight and quick and fast, and they kind of seemed to know what they were doing, whereas we were playing balls into areas where the link up between Jesus and the others just wasn't working on the day. So I think to some extent we just faced a team that's on a good run, and we just couldn't quite keep up with them, I think.
So on that first 20 minutes, Cal, when they did rip us apart, to be fair to them, what were Brighton doing that we couldn't live with that you saw?
I thought it was Barcelona against Celtic again for the first 20 minutes. We literally couldn't get out. I thought we looked like a team that played midweek. We looked like we'd had a game, which we did. But a few players were obviously rested, so you think they come back into it a bit more fresher. But yeah, I think Brighton, were so sharp. The passing was always forward. There was forward thinking. I think we just looked off it. I've played in games where first 20 minutes, half an hour, we're just miles off it. And as a player, when you're playing in that game as well, you're on the pitch thinking, Jesus Christ, can't get near them. These are unbelievable. You think they're unbelievable as well. And that's how it looked. I just thought we looked like a team, looked a little bit leggy. Obviously, we had a game Thursday. But like I say, a few of the lads got rested. So before the game, I thought, oh, no, it should be all right. A couple of lads didn't play. Obviously, I called them the main players, but still, yeah, we look leggy. But, you got to take your hat off sometimes. Brighton, they're a team in form. They're flying. And I think they showed that yesterday, to be fair. But like I say, I just feel, can't really put your finger on it. I just felt they were off it. I think going forward for us as well, we lacked a lot for some reason. Whatever that reason being, we didn't. The link-up play wasn't there. But again, I'm looking at Dunk at the centre half and their centre halves. They were on top of Jesus straight away, and it was. Sometimes, like I just said, you've got to take your hat off to the other team, and I thought Brighton were brilliant. As much as we could have been better, I thought they were brilliant.
before the game, Rob, I'd be saying this with hindsight. Dyche picked the team I wanted him to pick because we'd done well at Anfield. I thought it's very hard to change a winning team. You watch the game and wonder, did Dominguez's selection probably didn't work. Minter wasn't troubled by either, Dominguez or Nico Williams. He gave him a real going over. In hindsight, should we have played a second winger to pin them back as we did second half more? With Hutchinson has started.
There's a real moment. I think it was on 15 minutes. There's someone in the chat, I'm sure, will correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like, I can't remember who was in the ball. Was it Milenkovic? And normally last season, you'd have just sprayed it out wide and one of the wingers had gone chasing after it and we're up the pitch and everyone's happy. Whereas it felt like he was on the ball just at that few seconds too long where he's trying to assess his options. And when you've got Dominguez, who obviously naturally doesn't want to go flying down a wing, that was the real moment for me where you stopped and watched and you thought, I remember literally writing the time down, thinking to myself, that is a real moment where you thought to yourself, it doesn't feel like they look like they've got the distribution that they had last season or even in the second half. It's exactly like it's been said. They were just really, really good. We got into it after 20 minutes. It felt like it felt to me like, exactly like you said, what changes could he have made? And he said in his post-match comments, didn't he? I think he was saying it to BBC Radio Nottingham, that he looked at it and he thought, how can he change a team that's just won 3-0 at Liverpool? And that's what it felt like to me. It felt like a case of, it felt like he had to go with it because he performed so well and didn't want to kind of rattle people for no reason. But again, in hindsight, it felt like in my opinion, we looked like the away team for that first 20 minutes. It just looked like we just couldn't really get onto it. The one thing that did impress me, which I don't really remember seeing under Ange, and again, Kelvin's far better placed to answer this than I am, but when we looked better on corners to the point where I remember there was a moment when, was it about 11? I think it's about 10, 11 minutes in, where there was just about 5 or 6 shots from Brighton players. It was just like peppering the goal. But it was the first time I remember seeing them with my own eyes right in front of me, where they looked so compact around the goal. And it looked like even if they carried on for another couple of minutes, they'd have been fine. And that was the real change that I'd noticed with my own eyes seeing them this season.
Yeah, we did defend corners better, but we should talk about Morato. I think it was Morato who stepped into midfield and Murillo would normally play it forwards there, and Morato got a bit lost, I think. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that must have been the moment. It was yesterday was one of those moments where we all know that Murillo is amazing. And again, this podcast can turn into another 25 minutes saying about how he's so good and he's going to go and play for Real Madrid. And no one would disagree with you. But it's not necessarily the defensive qualities he's got. It's his pace. It's like he gets the ball and he'll just run with it just because he can. And I can't remember, I was speaking to an ex-pro a while ago and they were saying it's not necessarily what he does or the fact he can run. It's the fact if you're a defender on the other team or you play on the other team, you know he's that good and you just don't know what he's going to do. So it's not necessarily what he does do sometimes. It's what the knowledge that you know that he can do that to you that makes the other team's defenders a little bit more wary, if that makes sense.
I'm sure Dan will forgive me for going back to Kel to talk about a centre-half. Talk to us a little bit about Morato. I thought had a really rough game in a lot of ways, Kelv. What did you make of him in general? Then we'll talk about that second goal.
I think he's struggled since he's come to the club. I think he plays very slow. I think he plays still, like Spanish football. A lot of the ball on the floor, which it is in the Premier League as well. But it's a lot quicker. It's a lot more physical as well in the Premier League. But I still think sometimes, I played with a player at Preston when I was there in my early days, Claude Davies. And when he used to go and play for Jamaica and then come back, he would be in this mode. We used to call it the chilled out mode. He would be really slow on the ball. And Morato seems like he's like that every week. He starts really slow and he needs like a kick up the backside, a tackle or someone to rattle him to make him like angry. So I just think that he's struggled since he's come in. I think he's very lethargic on the ball. I think he's very slow in what he does. Probably a little bit too confident at times as well, where, we talk about Murillo. Murillo will get the ball, he'll run with it, he'll do some crazy things for a centre half. But sometimes he'll put his foot through the ball and put it in row Z. That's what you get from Murillo. He does make right choices. Don't get me wrong, he does make mistakes at times, but that's just his age. It'll come with more maturity with him. But I just think with Morato, he's just he's not reliable. He's not your safety valve. He's not your your two regular centre-halves that play every week. You know, I just feel like there's always a mistake in him. He's always going to give a chance away, and that's my only worry with him. You know, I don't feel confident when I watch Forest and he's playing. I just think, you know, he's got a mistake in him, and you know, unfortunately, yesterday it showed again.
Yeah, on the post-match showdown, I said I would pick Morato if Murillo's out because he's the more established player. But when you think about it, Jair Cunha does seem to have promise. Zach Abbott's got promise. Do you stick with Morato, who I think's got a few fundamental flaws? One of them being he's not very good in the air for a centre half at all, on top of what Kelvin said. Or do you go to Jair Cunha in what is a game we really need to win against Wolves? What would you like Dyche to do if Murillo is out?
I think the reality, well, aside from getting Willy Bolly in, obviously, there's another option that you don't seem to even be, you know, considering.
I like to think you put that picture in just for this conversation because you knew.
No, Dan actually loves Willy Bolly.
I'm sad enough to have that up all the time. I do think going away to Wolves, like you say, it is a huge game now in terms of getting that gap closed in the league, and I think you're going to go with the most experience you can. I don't think, you know, obviously Jair's only played about 20 senior games or something like that. It'd be a big ask to put him in there. I mean, he did well against Newcastle away. He looked pretty calm and composed on the ball and things, but that's really his only big test this season was that game. And I think you've got to stick with what's probably the more trained, you know, setup and more familiar setup when you go to that game away for me. I think Abbott the other night, he just looks a little bit too... a little bit too nervous on the ball and stuff still for me to consider Abbott. Jair looks more comfortable when he came in against Newcastle, but he's playing probably on the wrong side, being a right footer as well. And I just think you stick with what's probably more tried and tested. But it is difficult because you're caught between Morato, who's like 24 now, just checking his age. So he should be coming into that kind of prime period where he's got the experience and the decision making. But I agree with Kelvin, is that some of his decisions and that it's not so much about his physique for the Premier League, and I think he's got enough pace and all that. It's just the decision making, and I think that is the worry, that there's always a mistake in there for him. But I think we're caught between, Willy Bolly's got sort of too much experience. He's probably 2 years past his best, and then the likes of Jair and Abbott are 2 years too young to rely for me in a game against like Wolves, where it is kind of a relegation 6-pointer at this point.
Friend of the show, Nathan Joyce, as Jared points out on Twitter, was saying, you know, free Jair Cunha. He's a big lobbyist for him because he's a South American football expert. But if it's one game, Rob, and we hope it is, if Murillo does miss this one, what would you do?
No idea. It is one of those. It's exactly like Dan's just been saying. Is it the better the devil? You know that Morato's got certain attributes and he hasn't got other ones, and you try and do something about it. Again, I think James Perch was saying this yesterday after the match. You get so used to that, the fact that Milankovic and Murillo play so well together and they complement each other so well. It's where do you stand? Zach Abbott points fair. Zach Abbott, again, I really like him. He was great when we were in the FA Cup semi-final against Man City. It was fantastic, and obviously big player that's come through the team, and everyone wants him to do well. But he's got that look to me when a player comes through a youth team and they still seemed a bit overawed. It feels like they've been around the club for too long, and Kelvin will know better than me. But when you see players at certain clubs like you do over the years, that a player that's been there for such a long time, that's always held the first team in such high regard, and when they get there, it always seems a bit like they're a bit, definitely not rabbit in headlights. That is not fair. I'm not saying that about him, but it's just the way he interacts just makes me think I'd probably stick with Morato, even though he's not the ideal choice. And I'm sure that they're already looking to think about what they're going to do in that centre-back partnership when Murillo's eventually going to leave us.
It is a tough one, Cal, because you'll have played in pairs that are established pairs, and there's obviously there's going to be a drop-off because you're not going to have someone who's as good as those guys. So what can you speak to that? And also, one other thing, if Murillo's kind of 50-50 with his hamstring, do you play him? Because I remember the Leicester game where we fell apart and our Champions League push fell apart. Or do you give him that extra match and not risk it?
I think it's a tough one. I think obviously Dyche he'll be talking to Murillo, you know, saying don't risk it, but are you fit? They'll be having these conversations. I think Morata, I'll go with him if he's not fit. If Murillo's not fit, I'll go with Morata, definitely. Zach Abbott, I agree. He's a good player, but he just, when young lads usually break into the first team, a lot of the time, in whether it's Forest or any club that you see, they play with a lot of confidence. I don't see that in Zach Abbott, which is strange. I think when you get into the team, you should have the confidence. I think as a good player, he's going to be a great, he's going to have a great career and stuff. But I just think at the minute, I agree. I think he's a little bit in like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here kind of thing. You know, he's very energetic. He runs when he don't have to run. He makes probably not the right decisions at times. And that's not in a bad way. It's because he's that enthusiastic. He wants to do well for the team and things like that. And you just think sometimes, slow down. You don't need to do that. Just to, you know, you're there because you're a good player. So I think sometimes with him, he just tries probably too hard, which is probably a strange thing to say. You're trying too hard, but that can happen. You know, you make runs that you don't have to make. And, you know, he's a bit, I watched in Europe, he was putting quite a few crosses in, wrong crosses as well. He was floating them in when he should be cutting it back. And that's not because he's a bad player. I think if he did that, if it was a training game, he'd be cutting them back, he'd be getting his head up. But the adrenaline would have been rushing with him, where he just wants to get it in the box. He just wants to, he's concentrating too much on the next thing, where sometimes just play your game. So he's going to be a good player, but I think I would go with Morata. I think Murillo's not fit. You go with him, even though he's made them mistakes at the weekend and stuff like that. I think long term, again, if you're not going to be first choice centre half, you're never going to get a top centre half as the second choice, if that makes sense. Because top centre halves are only going to go to a club if I'm guaranteed to play, and you can't guarantee someone to play. Don't get me wrong. If you're out of form, you ain't going to play. But you want to go there, and the manager signing you, saying, "Listen, you're going to be my first choice centre half." But as a play, you know, like if I'm not playing well, I'm not going to be. But I'm going in there as that. So if Murillo does stay, and you know you've got players like Morata and Zach Abbott and people like this as backup players, you think, yeah, okay. But when they're making mistakes, and you know you're not coming in, you come in, you do a job, and if you get brought back out, you've got an argument sometimes. Like, okay, I know he's number one, Murillo, but I'm playing well here. He's been injured, but I don't think Morata can say that every time he's been brought back out because the players have come back in. But for the Wolves game, I think I would, if Murillo's not fit, I'd go with Morata. Yeah, I think I would. You know, the experience. Willy Bolly again. Experience-wise, yeah, you go with him. But has he got the legs? You know, has he got the legs to play in the Premier League for 90 minutes and stuff like that? It's a question mark. If you're playing against a physical team in the cup who's just going to go route one, yeah, you go with Willy Bolly. You know, he's going to edit. He's very powerful, very strong. But I think when it's a tactical game and, you know, the ball's in and around your feet, I don't know if I'd go with Willy Bolly. So, yeah, Morata would be the choice for me if Murillo's not fit. But I'm sure Dyche will have that chat with Murillo and just say, listen, we don't want you back for one game and then miss another 5 to 10 games if your hamstring does go. So would rather you miss this one and then come back fully fit for the rest of the season or for foreseeable.
Updates LinkedIn to say Kelvin Wilson agreed with my point about Zach Abbott. So
No, I agree. Yeah, totally agree with Zach Abbott. I think he's a good player. He's going to be a good player, but he's just got that nervous energy about him when he plays. I think when I watch him, you know, he does a lot of things that he doesn't have to do, which looks good because he's like really energetic, and fans might be like, "Oh, look at him up and down." But I just think, as a footballer, probably as a manager, sometimes standing still is better than running. Sometimes, you know, it helps your teammates out. But I think because he's got a lot of that nervous energy and desperate to impress, I think sometimes he just looks a little bit too nervous.
Wikipedia, the source of all knowledge. Wilson started his career at Notts County, making his debut in a 4-0 loss to Hartlepool, bloody hell, Calv, on the 17th of April 2004. Do you remember that game? Did you feel ready for it? And did you have that kind of nervous energy? How do you reflect on it yourself?
I did, yeah. I came on for the last, I think, 15 minutes, I think, at right back. So we was losing. I don't know what the score was by the time I came on. So I felt as strange as it sounds, I felt more relaxed because I thought, right, we're losing anyway. What worse can I do, kind of thing. But that nervous energy, yeah. And then I remember I started the following week against Brighton. That was my full debut, and we lost 1-0, scored a goal. But I think as a young lad, when you come in, you do have that nervous energy. It's definitely, you do want to impress. I think the main thing is that you don't want to make a mistake. You know, you don't want to make a mistake that's going to cost you the game. That's the thing as a young lad. You know, you don't want to embarrass yourself. And I see that in Zach Abbott. I think that he wants to get rid of the ball as quick as possible. You don't want to hold on to it too long, which is again a good trait for him. Being a defender, you don't want to make that mistake, but that will come with experience. You know what I mean? The more you play, I remember the second season. You know, I was playing with experienced pros, but I felt like I was like the main guy, and it calms you down. You know, it calms with experience and with confidence. It calms you down. It makes you feel like you deserve to be there, and you're good enough to be there. But you need them games.
Let's take a quick word for the Trent navigation, and then we will talk a little bit about the second goal, because Dan made an interesting point on Twitter, but I think we know where it went wrong in general. Wednesday night we are playing Wolves. The game is on Sky, so you can watch it at the nav, all the build-up as normal. I think Emily might be on the mic instead of Fothers, so it's worth going down just for that, because Fothers is away, but I might be wrong about that. Also on screen you can see all the offers throughout the week, heading all the way to Sunday roast on Sunday, obviously. So I will now ask everyone the same question I ask this time on a Monday, whether they've had it before or not. Rob Adcock, have I asked you what your favourite Sunday roast is?
No, but I've prepared.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, dear.
I'm going to do some product placement. I don't know if you've ever tried Dexter beef, but Dexter beef, just nicely with a nice little bit of pink. Oh, fantastic. My mum's, obviously, but my father-in-law does a very good one. Just before we go on any further, so impressed with the new nav yesterday, the Greg Mitchell suite. It's unreal in that it's really, really nice. It's like the first thing me and Mark, a lad who I go to the football with, we walked in yesterday, and the first thing you notice is like, oh, it's warm. I'd hate to be paying the heating bill first and foremost, but you go in. It's a good atmosphere. It's easy to get a drink. You're not messing around, sitting around for ages. You can have a conversation. There's loads of football on, and I like going to the big shed. Like whenever I go with my brother, it's the first place we go. We always insist that we go in there, but it's like a completely different atmosphere, and it's just a good place to go.
Yeah, I was in as well after Greg had officially opened it. It does have a different vibe. So, yeah, I'll clip that up for an ad drop. Well done.
Okay. 10%.
Dan, what is your favourite Sunday roast?
I think for me, and I tested this out the other weekend. I went out for a roast, and I had the trio of meats. That was an option, right? So I was trying to make my mind up by trying them all. And they had bass on tap as well, but it was in Derbyshire, so we won't give it a plug. But it was, I think I'd go chicken breast, but you know, when you wrap it in like a bit of prosciutto ham or something like that, it just gives it that extra little.
For me, far too
salty.
Wow,
oh,
that's not Sunday roast. That's the thing you try to impress someone on a third date.
Yeah. Well, that's what my missus makes. So clearly she's still trying to impress me. Hopefully,
yeah, every night it's a third night in Dan's house. Right, a third date. Right. Now, Kel, precursor to your answer, Perchy asked this last week, and he said he has mushy peas on a Sunday roast. So Dan gave a posh answer. What kind of answer are you going to give for Kelvin Wilson?
I like a lamb. I'm a lamb Sunday dinner. I love it. If it's cooked right as well, I don't like it too chewy, but lamb. But there's a place as well. Again, it's Derbyshire. I don't know if it's Ilkeston. Is that Derbyshire? The Durham Ox. Oh, beautiful, beautiful Sunday roast. The trio, though, when I eat, I like the trio meat as well. So I'm with you there. I like that.
Kelvin, we don't mention any public houses or anywhere that sells food or drink other than NAV. None exist.
Right.
I've only been on 4 times, and even I know that.
I had a carvery on Saturday in the garden centre, and the restaurant's fine because we were getting the Christmas tree. Advertised a carvery, minimal 2 meats you expect. Got to the counter, and it was just beef. So that's not even a carvery. I know, it's pretty decent, though. It's pretty decent. Right, we should talk about some football. No, you don't get that enough. Right, let's talk about some football. Second goal, obviously it's a disaster. You made an interesting point on Twitter, Dan, though. We know Morato's massively at fault. Milinkovic does let it go over his head and has his head in his hands. And it was a little bit Brentford at home last season, wasn't it?
That's the thing that reminded me of, because I saw the first 50, 60 minutes of the game, so I watched that back on highlights. I'd seen the reaction online and kind of heard the post-match comments before I saw it. I was expecting like a worse mistake, if you know what I mean, because I think once the ball bounces and goes over Milenkovic, I think he hasn't got a great deal of time to deal with it, so he can only make one real decision. And I think it did remind me massively of that Brentford goal where Milenkovic, instead of just focusing on the ball, he tries to give the player a bit of a nudge, and I think he could have probably got his head on it, because it comes straight from a goal kick as well, doesn't it? Which I think the Brentford one did as well. And then Morato has to do better, but all I would say is I don't think he was trying to be clever with his header or anything like that. I think it just happened, and he misjudged it, and he couldn't get enough on it to get it back to Sells quickly. Whereas from the reaction, I was thinking it was more of like a Scott McKenna against Bournemouth that time, where there was no real danger, the ball's out wide, and then he chooses to try and pass it back to the keeper and kind of undercooks it, and it creates a problem out of nothing. But I think that ball is dangerous. He has to do something with it, and he has to do better and deal with it. And obviously the second bit, when he decides to turn back in, clearly at that point that's the wrong decision, because he could have cleared it away for danger. But I think it just wasn't as bad as the reaction that I'd seen, if you know what I mean. I think it was one of those where in the moment he has to try and do something, and you want your centre-back to do better, but it wasn't entirely of his creating, I guess. It was a difficult ball to deal with a bit for me.
So just on that one, Calv, a couple of things. Obviously talk about the goal in general, but when you've played, you're 1-0 down, you're trying to chase the game. Is he thinking, I can't smash this into the stand because the crowd's going to boo me. I've got to try and get us back up the pitch. And he does a stupid back heel and plays it straight to their guy. Is that his mindset, or is something else going on there where he's just completely cocked it up? What was your read on it?
Again, my read on it is that it's that the football that he's came from. You know what I mean? It's playing in the Spanish leagues, whatever. That it's total football. Like I said about Murillo earlier on, he does do crazy things the way you think, wow, as a centre half, I wouldn't have done that, but he gets away because he's a good player. But he knows when to kick it into Rose Edge, you know what I mean? And I think I always try to back heel it and Cruyff turn it, whatever it was. I don't. As a defender, your instinct is just get the ball away. The first phase of it, trying to edit back, there's not enough on it to edit back. But I understand where he's come from with it. I get that, okay. But then you've got a second chance to deal with it. Don't then try and make another clever move by doing a back heel. Just kick it out. Let everyone boo. Let everyone get back in. Hold your hand up and you carry on. You know what I mean? But he's just made a massive mess of it. You know, the first phase of it trying to edit back, I understand that. You know, as a defender, you think, right, I can get this back, and then you're like, oh no. You know, you're telling yourself in your head when you've done it, like, oh no. So you chase him back, and he's got a second pop at it, but he's just not dealt with it. Just put your foot through it and just kick it out for a throw-in. Let everyone get back in. Let everyone moan. Put your hand up. Let everyone know you've acknowledged it, and you get back on with it. But I just think that, you know, it's two phases. I think Kenny had the ball at the start as well. Yeah, Kenny had it. Yeah, okay, but then his teammates helped him out. He's there to deal with it. He's had two pops at it, and the second one, he's just kick it out. Just kick it out. There's no trying to dress it up or dress it out. Just kick it out. But he's just trying to be clever. Again, is that his mentality of total football? You know, there's times and places, and it's not in your own box. You know, when you know you've got a defender, a striker breathing down your neck.
Does the crowd influence your decision making on the pitch? Or is that influenced by your own confidence in the game state? Does the crowd ever play a factor?
Yeah, a bit of both, Matt, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, your confidence, when you're playing with confidence, you're very confident knocking the ball around. When you hear boos, players that say, oh, just blank it out, you don't hear it, you do. You hear the moans, you know, a lot of people moaning and stuff, and you want to try and make the right decision. And, you know, that's when a lot of players go hiding as well and don't want the ball when things like that are happening. But I think there's a difference between thinking about what the crowd's going to say or conceding a goal. I think when you're in your own box, there's not a lot where I try and think back to my career. I wouldn't think, are the crowd going to moan at this? That's the last thing. All I used to think, as a defender, because you want to defend your goal, just get this ball away, get it away. And I don't know what he's thought doing that back. I don't know what he's gone for. I would have never have tried to do that. I know we're completely different players and whatever, but yeah, I don't know. He's obviously a confident boy to be trying that, very confident, playing with confidence. He don't let things get him down. But I just think with the header back and him nearly being caught out, within seconds to try and do that, you just think, just get the ball away. I've just tried to head it back. It's not got there. Right, let me just try and get it away now. So I don't, was it a rush of blood to the head? I don't know. But it was just a bad mistake all around.
Timing of the goals was pretty brutal as well, Rob, wasn't it? Right on the eve of half time, right when you still got time to get back in the match, second half as well.
Just the point that Kelvin was making there, it all comes in context, doesn't it? It's exactly like he was just saying. If there's a couple of like short back passes. There was that back pass header that just was a little bit short. Obviously, we go on to have an attack and it turns out okay. But it was, the context of it is he's not having a stormer at that point, and then to do that, that's when you just go, oh. And if I were his agent or if I were him, I wouldn't be watching the. Have you seen now on BBC iPlayer you can go and watch like the 7-minute highlights? They just clipped it all up and you don't have to watch all the way through Match of the Day. And they do like a 7-minute highlight reel last night. And I was watching it last night and I was trying to force my wife to watch it. And we were showing the bits where that had happened. And it looked like, if you only watch that 7 minutes and you don't watch the rest of the match, it looks like it had an absolute stinker. Because every time Forest were defending, it looked like he'd made a mistake. So again, I just think it's the important bit, the context to come around it. Going back to your point, yeah. But to be fair, I don't think we could have felt. I set a turn to Mark next and I don't think we could be upset that we're going in 1-0 down, because that first 20 minutes, I was just happy we weren't 3-0 down, because we got absolutely battered. So again, I'm probably the worst type of football fan, because I try and be as reasonable and balanced as possible. And you're going down to have a chat with your mates at half time and you're like, I don't think you can be upset with that 1-0 down. And again, we're trying to get an equaliser at the end. So how upset can you be when we concede again, if we at least trying to get an equaliser, in my opinion?
I think the way we conceded that second one, I know we can try to get the equaliser like that. I think if they get a counter attack and they're away and it's 3v1 or 3v2, you think, okay, yeah, we've pushed everyone forward, we've conceded, but because it's an individual mistake that's cost it, I think it gets highlighted more, don't it? That's the problem with it. But I just think as a player as well, going back to Morato, him headering it back, and then in that same,
play,
he's gone to try and then backheel it. Where as a player, if you go to control the ball on your chest and it bounces off and it goes to the player, and they break, the next time that happens, if that's coming in the air, as a player, I'm not going to try it this time. You just put your head through it and head it back. So for him to do two things in the same scenario, in the same, that same part of the action is just crazy. You just think, right, you've tried that, within seconds now, just boot it away. Let everyone moan. Right, sorry lads, and you carry on. So that's the only problem with that for me.
I will take a look at the first goal. I feel like Dan and Rob have not again as many saves, but it's because we conceded crap goals and we've got a centre half here. So I'm leaning on Kel quite heavily.
Yeah, fine.
I've got a couple of stills of the first goal, Kel. I want you to just get your take on what went wrong. On screen, for people who are listening, not watching, Brighton have just got the ball, but they've got three men in midfield. Sangare sort of on his own with all of them, because Anderson's drifted over, and Savona is marking. I think that's Gomez. I think it is, or it must be Gomez, I guess. Anyway, does that look all right, Kel? Or are you worried by the three men in the middle there?
Yeah, the three men in the middle. I think, the right back, I think he could be in a little bit more, because if their left winger there gets the ball, he's got time to travel with the ball to get out to him. He doesn't need to be so close to him. So I think if he's tucked in a little bit more, but we just looked really wide open in the middle of the pitch for some reason. Like you say, Anderson got dragged over, which it happens with midfielders to go and help your fullbacks, whatever. But I just feel there, my only thing would be maybe the fullback in a little bit more. That's probably the only thing there. Fullback in a little bit more.
So this is where it leads to. They play the ball and they've got two men bursting forward, and there's a huge gap between Savona and Milenkovic. So should Savona be more tucked in there, or is he right to be more worried about the number 25, Kel?
No, 1,000,000% he's got to be tucked in more, because if that number 25 gets the ball from there, he can get out to him there. If he scores from there, you take your hat off. If 25 gets the ball and he scores from there, you say it's either a great strike or it's a mistake from the goalkeeper, because he should save that from that far out. So yeah, he's got to be tucked right in. I thought that as soon as the goal happened and it showed it back when I was watching it, I thought if he's in, that midfield runner, he's not free in the middle of the box. The right back gets a slide tackle in, he gets a block in or something. And if it gets cut back to the 25, again, you shuffle across, you try and get a block in, he's far out. So, yeah, he's got to be tucked. He's got to be coming a lot more, yeah. He's too worried about the 25 when he shouldn't have been.
I do think that Savona got caught out a few times. Like, I think Brighton's movement and Welbeck dropping off and all that, I think Savona looked a little bit lost at times with knowing what to do, whether to tuck in, whether to stay out wide.
I was sat in the family stand and Milenkovic was talking to him quite a lot. Yeah. Trying
and I think that lack of experience for him, I think something that Brighton played on, and that's perhaps why they played the two left backs left-sided to have the width and all that. I think that was a factor in that first goal. But there's a really interesting passage to play on 11 minutes, because when I was watching the recording again, they did something quite similar insofar as it's actually a really, really good move from Brighton. Like, everything is crisp, but Savona is tucked in and he's on the penalty spot and he cuts the ball out that's going towards probably the same player or one of the left-sided players. And the difference is that this time he just isn't. He's too wide, like you say. He gets dragged out by the wide player, and I think that's the difference. Really, the ball lands in an area where you should have someone near that penalty spot in that situation to cut that ball out. Really,
fullbacks will do that. I think you get told when you're playing, always stay narrow, let them play on the outside, never let them play through you. You do drills in training where you'll score a goal if two players get split and the ball gets played between two of the same players. Sometimes that's a goal. I'm sure they still do it now. I did it when I was coaching still. So that's to get the players to learn to shut the gap and make them play on the outside of you. I've noticed with fullbacks when I played, when they're playing against a winger who's really quick or really tricky, you'll notice that the fullbacks start to creep out because he wants to get closer to the winger before he gets the ball so he can get in his boots and try and get a tackle in. That's just the worry. I get that from a fullback, because the last thing you want is a winger getting the ball running at you, especially in your box. You don't want that. And I think that's the case there. He was thinking, right, I don't want to tuck too far, because if it goes to him, he's going to get a run at me and I've got no support. And that's what his mind frame was there in my eyes. He's too concentrating on the winger rather than get tuck in, let it go to him, then deal with it. He was trying to edge his bets a little bit, which it cost us a little bit.
We should talk about wingers and support and for fullbacks, because we'll mention Dan and Doy, obviously, but talking about positives from yesterday, Rob. Omari Hutchinson, I thought, was excellent off the bench. Does he have to start a game now for you?
Yeah, yesterday when he came on, because he came on to a team that obviously hadn't had someone playing in his role before, so you're always going to be better, aren't you? Because if there's no one doing what you're doing and you come on, you're always going to look better than nothing. But he's just such an exciting player. And again, I said this last time he came on, fair play to him, because he came to the club and he obviously was told, Kelvin will know again. I keep feeling like every point I say starts by saying Kelvin will know for me. But like, he came into it and he's obviously been told X, Y, and Z. He'd been told that he'd be playing in this system. They're spending a record amount of money on you to get you here. He's obviously been sold a dream to a certain point. And he turns up, he's nowhere near the team. He's left out the Europa League squad. And he must be thinking to himself, where am I and what am I doing and why have I come here? Because it must be completely different to the idea that he was getting when he got there. For him to keep going and then to come on like he has done and make real impacts on the game. Yesterday, just as soon as he came on, he was just so exciting. I'm not saying he's a finished article. There's quite a few times, is it on his left foot when he crosses it on his left foot? Some of his deliveries can be a little bit wayward. Again, when you're watching it, you think he's just, as soon as he gets the ball, and this is why I much rather prefer being at the ground than watching it on the telly. You get that real sense of what the feeling is around the ground, and it was just the excitement that he brings to the team. And again, flash of orange boots always makes you a little extra 0.5% better as a player, I always think. And he's just running at them, and they don't look like they didn't know what to do. He's so quick at what he does. And yeah, he's not the finished article, but compared to what we'd had yesterday and how much it changed when he came on, it just makes him more exciting. And that's the thing, just the people around you talking about it. They're just literally, as soon as anyone picks up the ball, it's just like, give it to Hutchinson, give it to Hutchinson. And if you'd have said that 7 games ago when he felt like he was nowhere near the team, it just shows you how quickly football can change for me.
It is a fluid situation with the wingers, Dan, isn't it? I mean, Dan and Doy got hooked at half time. I'd quite like to see Dan and Doy start a game on the left and Hutchinson on the right against Wolves. But Hudson-Odoi could make a case. Back was nowhere at the moment, but I'm sure he'll come back eventually. Has Hutchinson suddenly propelled himself being the first choice winger, or is it going to change from game to game?
It does depend on the game. I suppose, again, the fact we're going away to Wolves in a kind of a bit of a relegation scrap game might play into the decision whether he's deemed by the manager sort of suitable winger option for that. If anything, he might have suited this game as a start rather than, say, Wolves away, potentially, where we might have expected to be a bit more front foot. But he's shown everything he needs to show when he comes on. And he actually did that early doors, if you remember, when he came on against Palace, even under Nuno, he came on for his 5 minutes and he was in good positions and he had a couple of chances. He has had that throughout, and I think he's showing it. It comes down to the kind of manager's opinion versus the fan opinion, which happens quite a lot, doesn't it? We're in that position where it feels like 99% of fans would say Hutchinson has to start the next game. And then the manager might turn around and not start him. And then you need to find out why it is or what it is about the player that the manager thinks is missing, for why he doesn't think he can start a game and play the full 90 or do a particular job. And I think for me, what I see with Dan and Doy is he's a player that will do what he's asked to do. I think he's quite mature in that respect. He's not necessarily just going to want to go on and do his own thing. I think he will play a team role because of his age and all that, and experience that he's got. He's played a lot of football. Whereas with Hutchinson, I wonder whether or not sometimes he does his own thing a bit, and maybe that's what is in the manager's mind for a start away from home for 90 minutes. So look, it's interesting. We get into these positions a lot, don't we? Like last season, it was Jota Silva had to start because of his impact off the bench, had to start, and then he started a couple of games and didn't have an impact. And in some ways Hutchinson is quite like him, right? He's got a lot of energy when he comes on, but it's a lot more technically controlled and deliberate, as opposed to sort of the chaos that used to come with Jota. But it's a good choice to have, especially when you consider we've still got Bakwa as well, who could come in and in a few games time potentially and have an impact as well. So it is a good choice to have, and one where I just think it's that, will the manager go with what 99% of the fans probably want now, or is there something that we're kind of missing?
My favourite moment was not necessarily one of his runs and his attacking, but when didn't he shoulder barge a player out the way to get a corner yesterday?
Yeah.
If you're on that team bus on the way home and your teammate has let, what is he, 4'3", shoulder barge out the way, he's obviously a fantastic player, but he's not going to be known for his physical strength. Even if you are caught off guard, you must be thinking to yourself on your way back, I probably should have done better there.
Shelley asks how long Chris Wood is out for. There doesn't seem to be a set timeline. I think he could appear at one game, or he could be out for 6 more weeks, it seems to me. Dyche's injury updates are quite vague on everyone, so I don't know when we'll see him exactly. Wolves away, Kelv, you're picking 2 wingers. I assume maybe you're still picking Dominguez. I don't know. If you're picking 2 wingers, who are you starting with?
I think Ndoye and Hudson-Odoi. I think.
Not Hutchinson.
No.
Interesting.
Don't get me wrong. He's like we've said, he's been brilliant when he's come on and things like that. I think I've used this phrase on here before, Matt, about football's an entertainment business. You've got your entertainers, your Gibbs-White, these players, Hutchinson's. Then you've got your business players, who fans they like, but they're not excited about. It's more for the manager. Like, yeah, he does me a job. He's not good on the eye, but he does a job. I think with Hutchinson, he's brilliant with going forward. I think the worry for Dykes he'll probably know more. Obviously, he sees him daily. Would probably be the defensive side of it. Coming back to help you fullback, things like that. So I just think that he's a great player to bring on. For now, the last 20 minutes, half an hour, he's got the legs, he's got the energy. Again, the quality that'll come with his age and practice and experience and things like that. But I just feel at the minute, as much as he's done really well coming on, which he has, I take my hat off to him. He's been brilliant when he's come on. There must be something there that Sean Dyche isn't seeing to start him, and that's just probably just having the confidence in him to do a job going forward and coming back. So that would be the only reason why I wouldn't start him.
Just quickly before we go to a second break, if Morgan is out, Rob, Would you start McAtee? We had this discussion the other week. I thought McAtee, he literally had 2 minutes. He had one really bright moment that reminded me of his quality. Would you start McAtee at Wolves, or is it a similar kind of conversation that Kelv's just had?
Yeah, same for me. Again, it's like, it feels a lot like what we were saying about Hutchinson. When you come in and you sold, this is what you're expecting to do. I imagine, again, I said this last time I was on, I imagine what McAtee was told he was going to be doing and the impact he was going to be having and how he's his role in the team, especially when you're coming from Man City. Forest must have told him a certain amount of, I wouldn't say give him assurances, but they were told him certain things that probably led him to believe he was going to be playing a lot more. The thing is about McAtee, and again, whenever I see, when you watch the clips of players entering training and all that kind of stuff, for me, he just looks like someone who's really low on confidence. And again, just because you see a couple of clips on social media, you're only seeing a few seconds. But whenever he walks in, he always seems like he's got his shoulders down. When you see some of the other players walking in, they look like they are very much enjoying being there and they're kind of really getting into it. He looks to me like his career doesn't feel like it's really started at Forest yet. That's just reading between the lines from what I've seen. So again, I've not seen enough of him to make me think he's going to be a regular player in the short term. So that's not really an answer. I appreciate the answer is pass.
Well, I asked that question because I'd forgotten to upload the global telemetrics ad, which I have.
Oh, thanks. So you completely chucked me under the bus for a couple of minutes.
I needed you to pad for a few seconds while I uploaded, and it's here now. So we'll wrap things up with
telemetrics.
Yeah, we'll wrap things up with thoughts on Wolves and the game on the other side of this short advert for global telemetrics. Good advert for YouTube, not good advert for audio. I should realise as soon as it starts.
Apart from when that car alarm goes off and it makes about half the people listening on Spotify jump, that's going to be brilliant. I can't wait to listen back to that.
It was a good advert, though, for saying if you do need to protect your vehicle from kids on motorbikes who will nick your Range Rover, then do consider global telemetrics. And also, they had very nice paving at the front of their house, as I also noticed as well. Right.
Was Kelv a massive car fan?
Were you, Kelv?
I was, yeah.
Do you regret any of the purchases? Sorry, Matt. Do you regret any of the purchases?
I don't regret them because I'm glad I had them. But yeah, I wouldn't. I'm older now, I'm wiser, and I'm not a massive car fan nowadays. You could put me in a little Mini. I'm not. There's anything wrong with the Mini, by the way.
Ooh, wow. Ivory Tower.
I'm not anymore. But yeah, when I was younger, yeah, I've been through quite a few.
Go on. What can you shout make some models at us?
Oh God, I sound like a right big time Charlie.
No, go on. Everyone appreciates you. We're a former footballer. No one's going to get upset with you.
I had a Bentley GT.
Porsche.
A Porsche Panamera.
I don't even know what that is.
Loads of Range Rovers, Q7s. Yeah, quite a few cars.
When you've got a Bentley with two, you're not going to have a Bentley with two young kids, though, are you? Unfortunately, that's it.
I got rid of it when my youngest was born. So there's
Have you held it against him ever since?
and Michael Mansion all got one at the same time.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. Right, let's get back to reality and talk about a Premier League relegation battle. Dan, Wolves on paper are absolutely terrible, but they gave Villa a test yesterday. Another day, they might have nicked a point. Like I said on the podcast yesterday, they're not going to lose 36 games in a season. They're going to nick points somewhere. And the worry is, if it's your team or anyone else's team, it's going to be against you. So how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I saw the graphic someone put up with all the LLLLDLLL results for Wolves, and then, Forest are up next, and will we be that W on there? From their highlights yesterday, they could have won that game. They had a goal disallowed for a striker just being in the wrong place, wrong time kind of thing with the offside. I think that goal would have stood if he wasn't there. And then they had a couple of other really good chances that they should have put. I think Martinez made a save onto the bar and off the line, so they actually looked dangerous, which was a worry, because they haven't looked like that for a while. So at the end of the day, that's a bit of a local derby for them though as well, isn't it, against Villa, which maybe plays into it. And I think you've just got to have the faith that our quality will show through, that we have got a bit more settled over these last few games. Obviously, we've had a more consistent lineup. We have looked solid in most games, not so much obviously yesterday in that first part of the game. But I don't think Wolves are going to offer the same level that Brighton offered in the first 20 minutes yesterday. Just the pace of the game will be different. It'll be a test, but it'll be a different kind of test, more around dealing with the long balls, the second balls, and trying to take our chances. I don't think we'll dominate it for 90 minutes, so we are going to have to weather a few storms, but it's just going to be like every game, really, taking our moments. And I think we've got the quality to change the game. If it's a stalemate, 0-0, when we talk about Hutchinson or McAtee and that, I think we have got the quality that Wolves don't have to hopefully get the job done. But yeah, it's a big game. It will be surprisingly nervous for this stage of the season for us, I think, from what we expected to happen this season, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm much more nervous about it than Liverpool away or Brighton at home, because those are games you can lose. Is it obviously you can lose this one, Kel, but is this kind of game from a player's point of view a much as a test of looking after your own performance more than anything on the night?
Yeah, definitely. I just think this game will be, and I think Sean Dyche will probably say that, probably not the same, but similar, just get the job done. I think obviously you want to play well, you want it to be pretty, but I think the result will just be the main thing. And I think that's what, it'll go for a solid team. I don't think there'll be any surprises in there that fans might go, I don't know about that. What's he playing him for in this game? I think it'll be a solid team, and I think it'll be a team just to get the job done, get the result. Like you say, you see all them LLLDs, and then you just think there's got to be a W come soon for one of these. It's a bit like playing roulette, and you're looking at red, and there's going to be a black. So I just think that Sean Dyche is an experienced manager. I just think it's literally, don't care how you play, just get the job done, win the game. But it's going to be a completely different game. I think Wolves will be really up for it. I think they'll see it as an opportunity to get that W, especially after the game yesterday. Even though it's a completely different team that we're playing, they will look at it like, Forest lost, they look very lethargic, etc. But I just think that we've got better players, we're a better team, and I can't personally see anything other than us winning the game. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think we'll get the job done.
Yeah, I suppose if you're a Wolves fan, Rob, they've already played Burnley and Leeds at home and lost to them. There's only a limited number of games where you look at it and think, this is a game we can get 3 points. And I suppose for them, this is one of them. So I've got my nervous hat on. How are you feeling about it?
I suppose it's the classic football fan self-preservation, isn't it? You always go, we're going to lose this one, we're going to lose this one. So anything other than a defeat, and you feel quite happy with yourself. That was the first thing that my father-in-law said when we got in the car yesterday, is watch us go and lose to Wolves on Wednesday in midweek. And it's one of those where you can see it. We've had some good games against them over the years, haven't we? Because we've always been roughly in and around a similar kind of position in whichever table it was. Was it a Friday night match? It must be like late 2010s. Did Andy Reid score a free kick?
I had some money on Andy Reid 1-0 in that game, and it paid for a pretty decent new coat for a student at university. Yeah.
But yeah, it's when they are one of those teams that I definitely don't think they're a bogey team. But whenever we play against them, because where we live in particular, there's quite a few towards like the south of the county, there's quite a few Wolves fans, and it's just one of those games that you look out for because they usually are half decent matches. Was it in the League Cup a couple of years ago when was the Morgan Gibbs-White?
Oh yeah, Lopetegui kicked that off.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, we were sitting in the Lower Trenton for that one. I remember all that one kicking off. So again, it's the classic. I'm telling myself we're going to lose just so that if we do lose, I'm like, well, I told myself that is going to happen, but I would be disappointed if we did. But it's exactly to your point. If you are a Wolves fan, you're looking at this one and you're thinking, right, well, if we're going to pick up some points somewhere, it's got to be sooner rather than later. And Forest seem like the good team to get the goals against.
Just before we go to final thoughts, then do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe, consider membership or Patreon. I'm going to record the Wolves opposition preview later. If you remember, you'll get early access to that, and we'll have our match preview at 11 a.m. tomorrow with Pete and another. I'll find a good guest for that, so don't worry. Right, Dan, any final thoughts? Anything you want to add before we go?
No, nothing really. I think the reaction to the results pretty good. I think I think Dyche has obviously got enough credit in the bank from the other results and things that yesterday hasn't been too bad. I think it's just a case of actually you could see this Wolves game as coming at the perfect time to get the momentum back again, I suppose, as opposed to being too worried about it. And obviously, tougher games to come away at Everton. So hopefully it's going to be a nervous one, but it's still hopefully a chance to keep this sort of new manager bounce going and show that we're that level above. Brighton was a good test because it would have shown if we're near to their level, and unfortunately we kind of weren't on the day. But this one is a chance to show that we're above that level of really having to worry about being in the bottom three in the long term, I think.
Kelv, anything from you before we go?
No, I just think, after yesterday's result, it's not again like, oh, here we go, we're back down in the dumps. I don't think that's the case. I think I agree with Dan. We played against Brighton, a very good side in Brighton. And we did have chances, let's not, first 20 minutes, we did get absolutely hammered, but, we did have chances. So I know this game's being built up to be a big game against Wolves. I don't see it as a massive, massive problem. I think if the player had been playing, take away yesterday's game, I don't see anything other than a win. So no, it's not a concern for me. Yeah, we're not at the level of Brighton. We're not at the level of the top six like we was last season. But it's been a massive change this season with obviously the third manager. I just think we're going in the right direction with Dyche, minus this little speed bump yesterday. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that we'll get a good result on Wednesday.
Rob, anything for you before we depart?
No, just the same as everyone else said. If I were a Brighton fan and I was driving all the way back down there and I was only leaving with a point or a defeat, I would be absolutely gutted considering how they played. It's all in context, Nick. They're a very good team. They were better than us yesterday, so let's not get too upset about it with things to be happy about. If you want to be happy about something else, if you want to pass on your congratulations to my daughter, Una, who used the potty for the first time yesterday, that'll be nice for her. 22 years old, but every day's a learner, and every day's a nice step, isn't it?
Yeah, we all got to get there sometime.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Good stuff. Thanks to Rob. Thanks to Dan. Thanks to Kelv. I really leaned on Kelv today. It was really interesting hearing that. Yeah, well done, Kelv. For the psychology of defending and that first goal analysis is what really good having the ex-pros on for this. So yeah, thanks to everyone for that. Do hit like before you go, and if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.